Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Social Contract, a Commander podcast. I'm Mike Allman, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Alex Lapp. Alex, what's up, man?
Well, not too much, Mike. It is the end of the year, the end of 2021, and we have had a lot of Magic releases this year. I mean, it seems like every year they're adding in more and more sets, more supplementary products. Yep. It's difficult to keep up with all of these different releases. So,
well, no, it's not difficult, Alex. They just have to listen to this episode and they can know about
That's a good point, Mike. We're going to recap
cards.
Some of our favorite social contract cards, our favorite group hug, group slug, stacks, chaos, symmetric effects, political effects. You know our wheelhouse. That's what we like to talk about here. And we're going to talk about the best social cards from 2021, Mike.
I'm very excited. I'm not going to lie, I'm very excited. Not just because this is episode 50 for us, which is
Holy
awesome.
moly, Mike. 50 episodes.
Yeah, that means that we've done this long enough. Like, this is syndication. Or is that 100 episodes? I don't remember. The point is, we've done this plenty.
Where's my residuals?
I'm working on it, man. The other part of this is that I actually needed this guide for myself. Because, like you said, there's been so
many
sets, so many new cards and everything like that. I've referenced it before. Last year, they released more new cards than they did in the first 3 years of Magic.
That is a ridiculous statistic.
And then halfway through this year, they beat what they did last year.
Wow.
So we're doing a lot of cards. There's a lot of stuff to talk about as a whole. But today, we're going to focus on some of the ones that made us the most excited and then do some wrap-up of the year stuff towards the end. So what I originally planned was for us to go, pick a card in every color. Like pick your favorite white card, pick your favorite blue card, so on, etc. And I wrote that in probably the dumbest way that I possibly could. So Alex did a card in everything. And I know for a fact, looking at the list, that part of it started to become a struggle because some of those cards were not Alex cards.
Oh yeah, that's once you start getting into the 3-color pairs, slim pickings. The 4-color pairs there weren't any. I went ahead and instructions unclear. I picked way too many cards, so we've got that all sorted out. I made a silly. So we'll start by going through the color pie.
Yeah.
In the monocolors, and then we'll transition into the multicolor combinations that we were interested in and the lands and the colorless cards. And shoot, I mean, we have a lot of fantastic cards here. Mike, do you want to talk about your pick for mono white?
I do. So the one that I originally went with was the one that you also chose. So I'm happy to go with my secondary one here.
Right.
And it's social contract wise, it might not fit. But I think we've got a sub-theme of help white out, the color needs help on a bunch of things,
right?
Draw, and more importantly for me, ramp. So, I mean, my card, I'm a little bummed out that it's just in a commander precon, but Archaeomancer's map is such a win for me. It's such a good on theme for white card for something that white doesn't do, which is ramp. So 2 and a white for an artifact that says when Archaeomancer's map enters the battlefield, search your library for up to 2 basic plains cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, if that player controls more lands than you, you may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. That's getting lands into hand and burgeoning, right?
It's actually better than burgeoning because burgeoning, even though it's cheaper and even though it doesn't require that an opponent controls more lands than you, as the game goes on and depending on the pod that you're playing with, the differences between Burgeoning's trigger and Archaeomancer's map's trigger become clear. And that is that Archaeomancer's map cares about when a land enters the battlefield, which can happen through ramp, through reanimating, through fetching, through creating a copy of a land, any number of things. But burgeoning only cares about when a land is played, which is a special action that can only happen once during a player's main phase. So Archaeomancer's map is probably going to end up triggering more often than burgeoning, especially in the mid to late game, Mike.
Because you're in white, right? Because if you're playing green specifically, there shouldn't be too many opponents that are playing more lands than you more routinely than you.
Yeah, white doesn't ramp lands really at all.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is, again, it's a good catch-up mechanic, which, frankly, that's all white is about balance, right? It's kind of one of those things. It's why,
of course, balance is banned.
White card.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I love Archaeomancer's map just because it is a card that gives the ability to keep up in the game. And it's not, sitting here at, 6 mana or anything crazy. 3 mana, if this is my turn 3 play, I'm pretty happy.
It's a pretty solid play.
White.
You'll draw 2 cards. They're both lands. You'll be able to ramp probably on the next 2 players' turns. You'll probably ramp twice that same turn. This card just came out this year, Mike, in Commander 21. It's already above $11.
Which honestly is fine, because there was some crazy prices affiliated with it to begin with.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's gone down a lot. And then, again, I get it. It's not as good as the upper tier ramp pieces. But in white, this is pretty great. And I'm happy just to see it exist, because it means that, hey, let's go ahead and try and take things into a better direction for this color that obviously needs some help.
For sure.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about your card, which was the one I was gonna pick.
Yeah, I think this is the one
we gotta expand.
This one probably counts as our as the mono white social card of the year, right? Wedding Ring from Crimson Vow Commander decks. It's an artifact for 2 white. That's 4 mana. When Wedding Ring enters the battlefield, if it was cast, target opponent creates a token that's a copy of it. And whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring draws a card during their turn, you draw a card. And whenever an opponent who controls an artifact named Wedding Ring gains life during their turn, you gain that much life. So, Mike, this is very similar to a lot of other things that white likes to do. Like we said, white likes to stay balanced. This is interesting, though, because unlike some other more social card draw effects, this is a deal that's created between 2 players specifically, right? Although, if you make copies of Wedding Ring, it works perfectly fine as a 3 or a foursome. So, I mean, if that's the way you swing, that's totally fine. You can have a thruple or a frupple, and you'll all be drawing cards and gaining life, Mike.
I mean, yeah. If you have a way of creating tokens for other players other than the ones that you place yourself, there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
And just like, hey, everybody, and you called it a political card in that you can go ahead and who wants to make a deal? Who wants to both get benefits here? The reason that I like this card is because you can do that. But you can also arrange a marriage with somebody.
Arrange a
hey,
marriage.
Hi, archenemy. You're doing a little bit too much
Interesting,
right now.
yeah.
I would like to go ahead and infringe upon that.
Well, some of the issue with that is that if you don't make a deal, and in fact, if you do the exact opposite of making a deal where you try to handicap someone with Wedding Ring, they actually have 2 options now. They can either... they have 3, really. They can either not care, which is the effect that you want, and just let you draw the cards. Or they can use instant speed card draw on another player's turn, because that won't trigger Wedding Ring. Or they can just not draw cards, which is, I'd call that half and half, right? That's a half-point victory, because by playing a card, you've stopped the archenemy from drawing cards. But the archenemy has a lot of options if you play this on them, right? I don't feel that it's as strong as what would you say, a ball and chain. I think it's a lot more strong as a gift.
I understand. Yeah. I understand. It's you should form it off of a partnership together.
Right.
Absolutely. I also realized that it was maybe 10 minutes into the episode when I said, yeah, a wedding ring is nice, but I really like it if you could force a wedding on somebody instead. And I'm going to have to reevaluate that and hope my family doesn't listen. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and move on to our next color here, blue.
Yeah.
No, your pick kind of surprises me. Not because it's a bad card, but just because when we talked about this card originally, it was like this does a lot. Okay. But I want to hear you talk about it here because it is a very good card. It's also terrifying.
Yeah, Mike, the card that I chose is Hullbreaker Horror for 5 blue. That's 7 mana for a creature Kraken Horror to 7/8 with flash, and the spell can't be countered. It has the triggered ability, whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. The first option is return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, which is remand or counterspell.
Yep.
And then the second option is return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, which would be a bounce or a Psych Rift that's not overloaded. Now, Mike, this is an absurdly powerful card.
Oh, yeah.
As it should be. It's a 7 mana creature.
Sure.
That said, even for a 7 mana creature, this is really up there. And the reason why I've chosen this card is because this is a very political rattlesnake, right? We've talked about rattlesnakes, and this is one of the mother of all battle cruiser rattlesnakes, because you have the ability to threaten at all times to counter any spell. Even uncounterable spells can be bounced back to their owner's hand, because that doesn't count as countering it. Or you can threaten to bounce any non-land permanent to its owner's hand. That's at any time, because you can cast instant speed spells. As long as you have cards in your hand, you can threaten this. And as we say all the time with rattlesnakes, the benefit of a rattlesnake is that it doesn't even have to bite, right? You don't actually have to counter a spell, to bounce a spell or bounce a permanent, or even do it that many times before people start making serious alterations to the way that they're playing, such that you've actually chilled the board, and now other people are casting fewer spells. They're committing fewer things to the board. The game is being warped around Hullbreaker Horror, and that's why I picked this card, Mike.
So the only issue, and issue is too strong, the only thing that I don't totally disagree with there is the premise of Hullbreaker Horror being a rattlesnake is absolutely legitimate. Except it's a 7 mana rattlesnake that also potentially makes you the archenemy. So what does the rattlesnake mean anymore?
Well, that's true.
Snake is too big. I can't... Well, of course it's going to bite me. It's big. But I totally get what you're saying. And I've also seen you play, so I understand where you're coming from as far as using this as specifically a rattlesnake.
Right. You can play this at the top end. At the end of the game, you put this down, and now... You're right. You might assume the seat of the archenemy. But at this point, if you're the archenemy, you have some pretty strong defenses. Removal spells can now be bounced. Anything that could mess with your win con can now be bounced. And it can be done any number of times per turn. It doesn't cost any additional mana or resources. You only have to cast a spell. I mean, I don't know what else to say, Mike. This is it's a monster. Like, this thing destroys battlecruisers. It is a battlecruiser.
For sure. It's a battlecruiser that destroys battlecruisers.
Look, it's destroying a ship right here in the art.
Oh, hey, what do you know?
Yeah.
That's on theme. And so are we. Ta-da. That's okay, because the other part of this is I'm super happy that you picked Hullbreaker Horror, because it meant that I got to pick my favorite card, possibly of the year, just because of how insane it is. Hey, remember when we talked about Mystic Reflection and it was really exciting and crazy and oh my gosh, think about all the things that you can do with this card when it was like spoiled?
Yeah.
And then the year went on and I got to play with Mystic Reflection and went, oh, this card is better than I thought. So Mystic Reflection, 1 and a blue for an instant that says choose target non-legendary creature. The next time 1 or more creatures or planeswalkers enter the battlefield this turn, they enter as copies of the chosen creature. And you can foretell it for a blue. That means that you can pay 2 generic mana, exile the card from your hand face down, and you can cast it on a later turn for its foretell cost. So it can be a 2 mana instant, or it can be a 2 mana, then 1 mana instant later on if you just want to threaten it out there like a rattlesnake, if you want to, just have it ready if you need to have the extra card out of your hand, whatever. Point is, the effect of changing creatures or planeswalkers to any non-legendary thing.
Any non-legendary creature.
Creature, correct. Is nuts. And, everybody has done the, if you do this, when the Avenger of Zendikar hits, and you wait, and then you can get all the plants and turn those into Avengers of Zendikar. Hey, that is absolutely awesome, cool, fantastic. You can also, there's so much fun you can have with this. I love using this as a defensive piece more than anything. Because the idea that, something is going to enter the battlefield, okay, great. Well, it's going to enter as a Llanowar elf instead.
Right.
Because I don't like that and that's scary. That's a lot of different things, an adaptable card. It's good at shutting other people down. It's good at, I would like a thing that you have. I'm going to pay this 2 mana, then I'm going to pay 1, flip this over, and I'm going to make this 8 mana token. I love this card because it's literally the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trap card, man.
You're right. It so really shows the strength of the foretell mechanic, right? Because you can use this as a rattlesnake, as you said. You can say, listen, somebody plays something I don't like, it's going to turn out to be nothing. So start playing the game of trying to bait me into using this because now I've run the board. You can do that. But you also don't have to let anyone know what card you've foretold. And I think it's pretty easy, especially as the turns go on, and you can cast this very early in the game for people to forget. And you're right, spring this. It's a trap now. They didn't remember that you had played it, and you aren't obligated to continuously tell them about face-down cards you control and exile. So it's a very versatile card.
Yeah, and that's with you giving all that information, which we encourage because it makes for a more fun game.
Right.
If you want to play this at like the highest level of competition, this is still a good card.
Yeah.
This is still a 2 mana, no it's not kind of card, or a 2 mana, well, I like I like not your commander, but I like your commander to turn into this instead. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do with this to totally disrupt other people's plans or give yourself some nitro and speed things up because now you have cards that you weren't planning on. I like cards that basically say, I am going to take my library and I'm going to add all of your libraries to it. And I'm going to be able to use options depending on what's going on in the battlefield. I like that kind of stuff.
You sound like a Sim Triplets player.
Well, no, because I don't like taking things away from people. I just like getting the same stuff, And how dare you? That might be the meanest thing you've ever said.
Oh, poor Mike. Well, let's play into that meanness and swap to Mono Black here. My pick for Mono Black was a very simple card, but I think very nice that we now have it, and I think this can go in many black decks. It's in my Belbay deck. This Keen Duelist for 1 and a black. That's 2 mana for a creature, human, wizard. They're a 2/2, and it has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you and target opponent each reveal the top card of your library, and you each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player, and you each put the card you revealed into your hand. So this is Dark Confidant, but for the table. Bob. It's friendly Bob, friendly Dark Confidant for the table. It's a very simple card. It's not flashy. It's not expensive. It comes out early, and it's... this is a very political card. I love this, Mike.
Oh, yeah. No, hooray. An extra card advantage, always good. The fact that you get to, depending on your deck, like you've got it in Belbay, great. There's a lot of high mana cost things you can put into Belbay without it being a problem. So you're getting a life loss advantage. More times than not. And it's just, again, 2 mana, 2/2 that nets you cards. Great. Just stop there and that's good. King Duelist is an absolutely banger of a card. And good pick. Good pick. for me, I really wanted to lean into the I like cards that you get to help out with other people. I had it narrowed down to between Incarnation Technique, which is a 5 mana spell that says mill, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield, but you can do it twice if you demonstrate and let somebody else copy it. I like Incarnation Technique a lot, but the most fun I've had this year playing Magic was pulling off a Hellish Rebuke, and holy cow. So Hellish Rebuke, 2 generic, 1 black, for an instant that says, until end of turn, permanent to your opponent's control game. When this permanent deals damage to the player who cast Hellish Rebuke, sacrifice this permanent. You lose 2 life. So
devastating.
There's nothing more satisfying than letting somebody go off with a ton of tokens.
Tokens that you may have helped them get.
Maybe. I didn't in this particular game, but I wasn't in a good board state. It was oppressive, the amount of tokens and everything that they were doing. They had an aura shards. Like, everything was terrible. And then they just have to decide who they're going to kill first. And I've never been more pick me. Come on, kill me.
Do it. Hit me. I want you to hit me.
And I'm like, I died in this process, but I won the war as far as I'm concerned. Because
a Pyrrhic victory.
Yeah, no, I very much did the I'm dying and extend my arm out and slowly
Hell's
fade
heart
into
I
the
stab
distance.
at thee.
Yeah, my other teammates looking at me. We started this war as enemies, but we became friends because of the tyrant. But yeah, no, from Hell's Heart. Yeah. From Hellish Heart.
Hellish Heart, I stab at thee, yeah. Good pick, Mike. That is quite the crackback.
It's a fun card.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Talk to me about your red card here.
Yeah, there were a lot of interesting options in red this year.
I think red was my winner for the year.
Yeah,
like, as far as just weird stuff and catching up and being cool, I think red did really well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I did have to settle on a single card, and I landed on Curse of Hospitality, which came out at Innistrad Crimson Vow. Wow, what a curse. It's 2 and a red, 3 mana for Enchantment Aura Curse with Enchant Player. Creatures attacking Enchanted Player have Trample. Even if it stopped there, I think that would still be playable, but what gets really exciting is the second ability. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to Enchanted Player, that player exiles the top card of their library. Until end of turn, that creature's controller may play that card, and they may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell. So that includes lands and any spell, because you can spend mana as though it were mana of any color. And this triggers for each creature that deals combat damage, and it triggers for each instance of combat damage as well. Now,
the opportunity to play other people's decks again, I think it's fun. 2, you said it right off the bat. Creatures attacking Enchanted Player have Trample. That's
really good.
A good motivator.
Yeah.
Because how many big dumb 3/3, 4/4, 5/5s you're just like, well, I'm not going to attack because they'll just chump block.
Right.
Well, now nothing is a chump blocker. Everything is just damage prevention until. And it's such a nutty card. Do you think that this is a 3 mana spell and not higher because of the idea that everybody's going to get a benefit other than that one player?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. We've noted this in the past, and I think this has been a very consistent policy that Wizards R&D has held, that symmetric effects that can benefit other players tend to be a downside and are compensated most usually by a reduction in the mana cost. And I think that's why we see such a powerful, impactful curse at only 3 mana, Mike.
Right. Because the other curses that I remember that do similar things, hinder one player and encourage you to attack them. Well, they give a benefit to the person attacking, but also to the person who cast the curse. So I get it a little bit for those because, hey, this is not really a symmetric effect. It's I'm going to hinder one person, encourage everybody to attack that person, and I'll get benefit when they do so.
Right.
Totally makes sense. Curse of Hospitality is everybody's going to get trample against this one player. And then when players individually do things, they individually get benefit. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of like that because it like the opposite of what you were just saying, right? It encourages people to attack a player because it only benefits them rather than benefiting you as well.
Exactly. I think that
I'm
makes people don't have to do the math in their head because unlike you and I, right? A lot of players are extremely sensitive to giving a benefit to an opponent. And not in a bad way. I mean, sensitive as in if something could, in theory, benefit an opponent, they'll notice that right away and they'll be much more reticent to want to take that action. So when you have something like Curse of Hospitality, which is basically only upside for the player who's swinging in, directly at least, that they're not running that math right. They're a lot more likely to indulge and say, you know what, I'll take some free cards. I'll take a free land and I'm not really going to worry about it because Mike isn't going to get a treasure token or untap all of his non-land permanents or anything like that.
Right.
But there is a benefit to the caster, right? That combat, all of that ire, all of that enmity is going toward someone else so that you can build up your board and not have to worry about being swung into as often.
Yeah, I think a lot of the curses as kind of a weird form of fog because are you really going to attack me when there is this such a big carrot on a stick over here for you to go after instead?
That's the nice thing about curses. You can stack those carrots up and eventually somebody will bite like, wow, I can draw a card, make a treasure token, untap my permanents, and play all the spells out of the enemy player's deck. Like, yeah, okay, I'll swing in. Right? It's eventually, what is it that, I think it was Jeff Bezos who said this, and I don't like that man, but he had said something very smart, and he said I'll paraphrase, that the best way to sell a product is to stuff so much value in it that the buyer feels like an idiot if they don't buy it. Like, oh my God, that's the best deal ever. I have to do it now.
Yeah. That fear of loss and what happens if I don't get it now.
Because everyone else is going to take advantage of this deal. Or they might. Right. You assume they would. Anyway, Mike, that's my pick.
I like it. My red picks, I'll get to the one that I'm absolutely picking, but I want to shout out Surge to Victory because it is the dumbest win condition that I've ever seen that I just love.
Yeah.
4 generic red for a sorcery. Exile target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard. Creatures you control get +X+0 until end of turn, where X is that card's mana value. Whenever a card you control deals combat damage to a player this turn, copy the exiled card. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost. So I just did something stupid with this. I didn't go, ham and, exile a 6 or 7 mana spell or anything like that. I exiled a lightning bolt because nothing was funnier than me attacking with 10 creatures and making a friend who lets 7 of those creatures through to where I get to cast lightning bolt 7 times and do 21 damage to another player.
Oh my God.
Because it's silly.
It is silly. This is it's like a mass cipher effect where you're imprinting a spell onto a creature, and when it deals combat damage, you'll cast that spell for free. This is highly impactful. Obviously, it's a 6 mana sorcery that doesn't give evasion, and you have to have another card to make it work. But if you get all those pieces lined up, obviously, Mike, this can be a huge blowout.
Yep. It's a fun, silly card. I love that it's
But that's not your pick.
Yeah, it's a great card art, etc. My actual card, I want to talk Shared Spoils.
Yes.
Because, holy cow. Your enchantment is fun.
This is really good pick, yeah.
1 generic and a red for an enchantment that says, when Share the Spoils enters the battlefield or an opponent loses the game, exile the top card of each player's library. During each player's turn, that player may play a land or cast a spell from among exiled with Share the Spoils, and they may spend mana as though it were any mana of any color to cast that spell. When they do, exile the top card of their library.
Wow.
This is like a plane chase card.
It is. It is like a plane chase card.
It's just the idea of, hey, everybody, I like I said, I've got a theme going this episode, it seems, where I like playing everybody's decks, but I would like you all to be able to play my deck too. Let's go. Everybody, whatever's on top, it's available to everybody. But what I really like about this is during each player's turn, that player may play a land or cast a spell from... So everything that you can do is during your turn.
Yes.
So the idea of instant speed, stealing stuff, not having to deal with it, not a problem at all. I like the design around this card on it being a weird card. Like, we're going to take the game of Magic and we're going to turn it into something similar, right? But we're also going to be smart about how we phrase everything. We're not going to do this. We're not going to do... I like Share the Spoils a lot.
Yeah, Mike, this is just a excellent card. It's very fun. It's very aggressively costed, and it really warps the game. You're right, in the same way that a Plane Chase card would, in just such a fun and enjoyable way, right? Because not every spell in the pot is going to be a banger, but like right at the beginning, there's going to be some really juicy stuff in there. And then every time somebody uses one, casts a spell or plays a land from the stack, from the pile, excuse me, then a fresh card comes in and, people might get excited again. Well, what's that new card? It's like, who's going to play that one? Who's going to cast that? This is just such a delightful card, and I'm glad that this one was printed.
Now, help me out with the last thing here.
Okay.
It says during each player's turn, that player may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with Share the Spoils,
yes,
etc. So do you get to do that once? Or do you get to do that as many times as cards are on the table?
I believe that is only once. Yeah,
that's the other part of what I like
one land or one spell each player's turn. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the other part of this that I was pretty sure on, but I also like, because the idea of, man, it really is fun when you I'm going to take this person's land. Ha ha. And then they flip a Soul Ring and you're like, well, all right.
Yeah.
I love that theme that can go with stuff. And that's why most times I've played this in a couple of decks. What I like to do is I usually target the player who's next in order, and I will just ask them outright, hey, do you want that card or not? Because if they don't want it, and it's something that benefits me, great, I'll use theirs. They'll be all happy. Hooray. No big deal. And then I've kind of made a friend just by not stealing their stuff. But everybody else might try and steal their stuff. Ha-ha. Political move. Woohoo. But yeah, Share the Spoils is fun. I like it.
Absolutely.
Alex, you took my favorite card in this set, and I'm going to be happy to hand it your way because it's dumb. And talk to me about your green card, buddy.
Yeah, so I think this might be perhaps one of the strongest creatures that was printed this year. It's remarkably powerful, Mike, and that is Druid of Purification. Yep. It's 3 and a green for a creature human druid. It's a 2/3, and it has the triggered ability: when Druid of Purification enters the battlefield, starting with you, each player may choose an artifact or enchantment you don't control. Destroy each permanent chosen this way. Mike, there are so many things to love about this card. Number one, it's a trigger, so we can get this multiple times from reanimation, from blinking, from copying triggers, all that good stuff. That's just the tip of the iceberg, right? We're destroying a bunch of other things on the field. It can't be ours, so we're going to be hitting all the best stuff. Whatever anyone else wants off the field, that's what they'll get. People can crack back at each other. Oh, you blew up my Soul Ring? Well, I'll blow up your thing. Mike, this card is so much destructive value for only 4 mana on a body. I mean, what do you even say about this card? This replaced a powerful card in my Vanifar deck, which is just a collection of some of the best group hug and political good stuff out of all Simic creatures. And this just knocks it right out of the park, Mike. I love Druid of Purification.
Yeah. No, it's a great card. This was. I don't think it was my favorite card printed this year. The more I'm thinking about it, but it was among my favorites.
Yeah.
And the only reason that it's not my favorite is because Mystic Reflection is so good.
That's fair.
Because I went Mystic Reflection. I can make more Druids of Purification. Yes, let's go.
Is it your favorite creature that was printed this year?
I think
Maybe.
so.
Your favorite non-legendary creature?
Yeah,
okay.
non-legendary.
There you go.
Almost certain.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, no, it's what's the white spell that does this?
This sounds a lot like Council's Judgment.
Yes.
Which is a legacy staple that's 1 white for a sorcery that says, starting with you, each player will vote on a non-land permanent you don't control. And then each non-land permanent that received the most votes this way will be exiled. And in Legacy, that's very powerful because of cards like True Name Nemesis that give you protection or give another player protection from you, which would make it very, very difficult to remove any of their things because most spot removal targets, but that doesn't. And likewise, Mike, Druid of Purification also does not target, so it will get around hexproof, and it will destroy each permanent chosen this way. It will not get around protection, but it will get around hexproof and shroud.
I think when we revealed this card originally, I called it Druid of the Council.
Yeah, it's an easy comparison.
What it does.
Yeah,
it's a great.
I really like this card.
It's a very good creature.
Now, tell me about your creature in green that you picked.
So I picked Druid of Purification, but because you picked,
you can't,
and I want to talk more cards.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the little guy. I want to talk about Toski, Bearer of Secrets. 3 generic and a green for a legendary creature squirrel 1/1. This spell can't be countered. Indestructible. Toski, Bearer of Secrets attacks each combat if able. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. So here's the thing. There is a way that you build this where you go as wide as possible, you get as many creatures as possible, etc., etc. Totally fine, totally dandy. Have fun. I love the idea of this squirrel that has this like artificial hook arm and saying, you know what? I'm going to Voltron the heck out of this thing because I want to give this squirrel swords. I want to give it armor. I want to give it a bunch of stuff. I like the idea of just squirrels being a thing. This was the precursor for Chatterfang and all the other squirrels that happened this year, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I just like Toski. It is a good card. But for me, it's much more of the fun that you could go outside of the actual, like, oh, this is a really effective card, and this turns on synergy. I just like the card. It's just a great card art, cool effect. I like that it's a squirrel that's indestructible and can't be countered by itself. I love that if you put Darksteel Mutation on this, it goes from a 1/1 to an 0/1. Like, I just like Toski in general, and it's going to be the pilot of a deck for me someday. I just have to decide what exactly is what it's gonna be about, because I don't need another Voltron deck.
That's true. Yeah, Mike, this card is just stacked.
Yep.
Reminds me of Questing Beast, which just the abilities just keep coming, right? It would be enough it couldn't be countered and was indestructible, but now it also attacks each combat of Fable, and it can't be destroyed. Mm-hmm. So obviously you'll always be forcing people to make decisions. And then it has that Edric effect, and this probably slots great into Edric. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. That's a really powerful ability for green. And yeah, I mean, this is a fun commander. Hopefully you can come up with something interesting to do with it.
Yeah, because again, it seems like a lot of like good green stuff. You know, it just this is just a good card.
Yeah.
I love Toski. I very much want to Assault Suit a Toski because Assault Suit's good. Maybe that's what it is. My favorite green creature this year, or my favorite green card this year, was Assault Suit. But
yeah, I think that came out a while ago.
Yeah, well, you know, and also not green, but regardless. No, I like Toski. I just think, again, it's one of those, every once in a while, a card just makes me happy, and it has very little to do with the actual text on the card, and very much to do with the context and creation. This is the first card I think I've ever chosen because I like the art. I like this card a lot.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move on here to colorless, because I'm pretty happy that you picked the card that you did, because I thought you were going to pick it, and that's why I didn't pick it, and Yes, 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 yes. Talk to me about your color of this
Okay,
card.
yeah. Mike, I picked Wandering Archaic / Explore the Vastlands, which is a modal double-faced card from Strixhaven, School of Mages. And yeah, we got a creature on the front, sorcery on the back. Let's talk about what they are. Wandering Archaic is 5 generic mana for a creature avatar, 4/4. With the triggered ability, whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, they may pay 2 mana. If they don't, you may copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. I think that's why most people really enjoyed this card. And this is just a phenomenal ability. It makes
Oh yeah.
people seriously consider what they're casting, right? It's going to chill the board. It warps the game around it. That's the kind of card I like to see. And, I mean, it's also a tax effect that's a lot of people may just really not feel like paying. I mean, especially if you've ingratiated yourself with your deck and you've shown people that you're playing a very nice group hug deck that's not going to bowl over everyone with explosive combos and things like that. They may just not even bother to pay it. And if they do pay it right now, you have the heuristic study problem of you're taxing them for 2 on every instant and sorcery they cast. So yeah, Wandering Archaic, just a delightful, delightful creature. But that's not all. There's more. Because on the back, as an alternate option, you can cast either face. On the back face, we have Explore the Vastlands for 3 mana. It's a sorcery. Each player looks at the top 5 cards of their library and may reveal a land card and or an instant or sorcery card from among them. Right? So you can choose either land or instant or sorcery, or a land and either an instant or sorcery. That's kind of difficult to parse. Each player puts the cards they revealed this way into their hand and the rest on the bottom of their library in a random order. Each player gains 3 life. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is just fun, right? You're letting everyone dig.
It's stuff in everybody's hands.
Yeah, it's stuffing everyone's hands. It's I like that it almost has a good cop, bad cop kind of thing going on, right? You can play the very nice, very kind Explore the Vastlands side and go ahead and grab a land, grab an instant sorcery. Everyone has a good time. That's great. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's nearer to the end of the game and you want to start cracking the whip and you play the Wandering Archaic side instead. This is a very versatile card, very powerful. It's in colorless, so it can be slotted into any deck. And I like the art from Wayne Reynolds. What do you think, Mike?
No, it's a beautiful looking card. And, man, when you're talking about 2 sides of a coin here, is there there's such a drastic change between 3 mana, everybody look at the top 5 and grab yourself a card or 2 and then gain some life.
Yeah.
And hey, whenever you cast a spell, you need to pay this tax on it, otherwise I'm going to
It's very on theme for my Emrakul deck.
It's a very cool deck.
Yeah.
It's a very cool deck, and this is a very cool card to go into it, like windmill slam immediately.
For sure.
It is one of those cards that I almost think that people have to know the deck and trust the deck before you can play this. Because it is such a scary effect of, well, I don't want you to copy my spells. It's like, no, I understand. But
I'm going to.
Yeah. Well, then I'm going to kill your thing. It's like, all right, well, I'm going to copy that spell.
And I'll just choose new targets for it and blow up your commander.
Yeah.
That's fine. Mike, this card is so flashy. I think a lot of people just saw the front face. They ignored the back face. And you know what? That's fine for some people, but I love that this has 2 different faces. You have your good cop, your bad cop. I think it's a great card.
Yeah. When you were talking about this card, and specifically, people ignore the back face of this card. I didn't ignore it, but I'll admit, I totally forgot what the back of the card actually did.
Yeah.
So, good call by you. Way to point it out. And this is a very good card. Good call. Mine is, again, another silly card. I picked Strixhaven Stadium. This is 3 generic for an artifact that says tap, add a colorless, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature deals combat damage to you, remove a point counter from Strixhaven Stadium. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to an opponent, put a point counter on Strixhaven Stadium. Then if it has 10 or more point counters on it, remove them all, and that player loses the game.
Spicy.
I love this card because there is nothing more fun to me than the political value of, hey, I need to hit you with 5 creatures to take out the archenemy.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. And, I understand. 3 mana for a mana rock that nets you 1.
This is high upside.
That is not why you're playing this
not
thing.
I mean, it's a mana rock incidentally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just love that, maybe I just like the Wizard Sports from Strixhaven, but the idea of, I'm going to play this artifact, not even a legendary artifact, by the way.
Yeah, no kidding, dude.
Which seems kind of silly.
Yeah.
Man, I should make copies of this. That's nuts.
Oh my God.
But the idea of, okay, well, I'm going to just make sure that I've got a bunch of tokens or a bunch of ways to get through and just get some counters on this thing, hopefully prevent some damage my way. And then you're a threat with this dumb little 3 mana tap rock. But it's out of nowhere. Because, I've got a bunch of 1/1s. Well, now I'm going to tap all of your creatures, and my 1/1s are now, if I hit you with enough of these, it's basically infect. Because you're going to lose the game. And, man, I love this card. Every interaction that I've had with it, every time that somebody reads the card the first time, they're like, oh, okay, I don't really get it, but fine. And then they read the card later.
After they lose.
I love that. Well, after they lose, or after I say, hey, I need to hit you with one of these things, and I have to hit them, and then they will lose the game. And they go, wait, what? I love that. I love that effect on a card. I love that effect on a colorless card so it can go into a bunch of decks.
Yeah.
Strixhaven Stadium made me really happy this year.
Yeah, Mike, this card is... it's a win con, and it's a win con that people really don't want to have to remove, right? Because it's a mana rock, it's a 3 mana artifact, it seldom looks like a threat until it's about to blow someone right out of the water and they lose the game. It's a tricky one, and I think this could be slotted into a lot of token decks. Have you slotted this one?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. This is one of those cards that I got enough of.
Yeah.
Early that there are more decks that I need to take it out of because it doesn't make sense. It's just fun. Then, right on. I've got a couple of low to the ground decks. I've got a couple of token decks. I've got a couple of things that this really sits in. But then there's a couple of cards that I'm like, I'm never going to get this above 4 counters. I don't know why it's in here, but I still enjoy it.
No, that's a good pick. I do think that's a very interesting card. So we have a lot more cards. They're gold. We got a lot of multicolor cards and lands. Why don't we take a short break, come back and do our... most of them are commanders, frankly.
Yeah. No, we'll take a look at those, at all of them, but 1 or 2, I think. Yeah. We'll do our favorite gold cards / commanders. But either way, good call by you. We'll be right back. All right, and we're back, and holy cow, we've got some cool commanders to talk about. We got some cool gold colored, some of them not, but most of them. But the point, there's a lot of cool cards this year. I'm much happier now that we're through it, But let's talk about a couple more of these cards. Alex, most of these are yours because I'm really bad at giving written prompts. So why don't you go through a couple of these cards for me?
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I picked a lot of different commanders here, and we can go through most of them. I think that we don't have too many different ones, and they're all from different color pairs or different color trios. Yep. The first one I'd like to talk about here is Lind, Cheerful Tormentor, who's from Midnight Hunt Commander decks. And she's 1 in blue, black, red. She's Grixis for a legendary creature human warlock. She's a 2/4 with death touch. And she has whenever a curse is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to the battlefield attached to you at the beginning of the next end step. And she also has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may attach a curse attached to you to one of your opponents. If you do, draw 2 cards. Mike, this is the curse commander that we've been waiting for so long, and it's a strong enabler. I think the only complaint I ended up having with this one was I wish there were white because there are so many powerful curses in white. However, I think that WotC is pretty reticent to do 4-color cards, which is okay.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. And man, Lind is fun. Like every time I read this card, I get really excited.
Yeah.
And then I go, "Oh, right, that sounds fun. I want to play that." And then I start to build the deck, and I go, "Holy cow! I have to get so many cards to do this."
Well, the problem,
but it's such a cool card.
The problem isn't really that you have to get so many cards, right? Although that may be a personal problem. The issue is that as it currently stands, there aren't a enormous number of blue, black, red curse cards to draw from for the deck, right? Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily an issue that's so dire that you won't be able to build a deck, because obviously people can and have. The issue is more that the selection is so limited that one deck will be very, very similar to another deck. It's almost like a solved deck, which tends to make deck building pretty uninteresting. However, as time goes on, as the years go on, I'm sure we're going to see more curse cards here and there, and maybe 3-5 years from now, we'll see maybe we have 100 different curse cards, and now we can really build a Lind deck.
Sure. No, and that's a possibility. And, you know, maybe it's that. And, man, we have to do a how does it win episode.
Yeah.
Because I have always had this concern with making a curse deck, because the curses are really cool. But I don't know what else to put in them to make me win the game so much as just make other people have a harder time losing.
So that's an excellent question, Mike. I think that we've talked about this before, but I have this problem, and you probably also have this problem, that when we're building decks, we like to focus on what cool things the deck is going to do long before we concern ourselves with win cons. And that can kind of get me into a corner, right, where I'm trying to figure out, like, oh my gosh, how's my deck going to win? The best way that I find to figure out how your deck is going to win is look at what your deck is doing and then look at other archetypes that closely approximates. For example, with Lind Cheerful Tormentor, we're doing a lot of curses. Now, curses are unique, right? There's no other deck archetype other than curses that has curses. However, curses are all enchantments. And there is a very popular archetype, Enchantress, or I guess Unnatural is what EDHREC calls enchantment plus artifact decks, but mostly Enchantress decks. You can use the win cons of Enchantress decks to win with Lind, even though your goal is not to play a bunch of enchantments per se, but to play a bunch of curses.
Which is fine. And that makes sense. And that goes back to what you said before. Wish this had white or green in it.
I do.
Because normally in those Enchantress decks...
It's true, but there are blue Enchantress decks, and they do have blue win cons, Yeah,
no, good call by you. Why don't you give me another couple?
I will. I was delighted to have the desire to, and I did purchase a Commander deck from off the shelf for the first time since I began playing Commander, because typically what I'll find is that I'm not interested in enough cards in the deck to justify buying the whole thing, which is usually upwards of $40, and I can buy, the 3, 4, 5 singles I need for under $5. That's just how I personally tend to engage with Commander decks. However, this year we had Strixhaven Commander decks, and one of those decks, the one I'm going to say, was Silver Quill deck, black and white, and boy, was this deck stuffed to bursting with the kind of cards that we love. We had an entire episode about it, and in that episode, we talked about the face commander Shadrix Silver Quill, 3 white black, for a legendary creature, Elder Dragon, 2/5, with flying and double strike. And the triggered ability, at the beginning of combat on your turn, you may choose 2. Each mode must target a different player. So you can either choose 0 or 2, and each of the 2 must target a different person, and that includes you. First option, target player creates a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. Great token. Second option, target player draws a card and loses 1 life. Always good. Third option, target player puts a +1/+1 counter on each creature they control. Mike, this is what would you say, a political toolbox commander. This is so
really
versatile. You can do so many cool things with this. You can give the thing you want most to yourself. You can strike a deal. People will be fighting over themselves for stuff like this, right? There are people who just want that one creature so they can sacrifice and start to do their thing. There are people that want to improve their board and get a bunch of 1/1 counters on their go wide deck. Everybody wants to draw cards. Of course, everyone wants to draw cards. And goodness gracious, Mike, you of course would construct your deck such that you would always be able to benefit from these modes. And I am so pleased. I haven't personally made this deck because I'm very, very picky and I want to make very unique decks. But this is one of the coolest political commanders I've seen in quite a while, Mike.
No, it's an extremely fun card, and that was our commander set of the year. I mean, as far as
for sure,
concerned, like,
Strixhaven commander set of the year, absolutely.
Yeah. No, and it was Silver Quill. The
Go
deck
Silver
itself,
Quill.
So
a lot of the cards we picked so far have been from Silver Quill.
Yeah. No, and look at my shocked face. It's a very, very cool card. It's a very cool commander. What else do you want to hit here?
Sure.
As far as
Mike, there was another card in that deck, in that commander precon. That's there are a lot of them, right? But this one you actually pointed out to me. Tell me about Inkshield.
Yeah. So Inkshield, 3 generic white-black, so 5 mana instant. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt to you this turn. For each 1 damage prevented this way, create a 2/1 white and black Inkling creature token with flying. So 5 mana fog is a lot.
Yeah.
I totally get it. But it is a 5 mana fog win the game, as far as I'm concerned. Because if something is attacking you with enough stuff to kill you or really hurt you, and you turn each one of those damage, not each creature, each damage, into a 2/1 with evasion. That's nuts. You're doubling up on power for whatever was going to hit you. I understand the big argument on this is always going to be 5 mana to hold up in Orzhov or Silver Quill in this case is a lot. But 5 mana to win the game doesn't feel like a lot. And that's what I translate this to. I understand there are some downsides. Do you really want to do this if you're getting hit by a 5/5? Probably not. But 5 mana to make 10 2/1s is still pretty good. Or to make 5 2/1s is still pretty good. The worst case scenario on Inkshield is that you don't ever need to cast it. Okay. I can deal with that.
Yeah.
I like Inkshield a lot. And this is what I think Arachnogenesis gets confused with a lot of the time.
You're right.
And I'd prefer this.
Yeah, Arachnogenesis is a very similar fog effect that will prevent damage being dealt by non-spiders and then make that many spiders. But the number of spiders being made is based on the number of creatures that were attacking you, not how much damage was being dealt. So Arachnogenesis tends to be overvalued in my opinion, and in Mike's I think as well. But Inkshield, there's another avenue that I'm sure you've thought about or even used, but you didn't mention it right there. And that's that you can use this to strike a deal, right? Because you can have somebody with a strong board, but they're not the archenemy. Maybe they have 10 power on board, something like that. You can say, hey, listen, I need you to swing into me with that 10/10. I won't kill it. I won't steal it. I'm not going to do anything to it. I just need it to make value, and you can strike some kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
And they swing in with their 10/10. That gives you 20 flying power. That's an avenue that you can take, Mike.
There's been several times where I've had this in my conversation, and the couple of times that the deal has been accepted have been great.
Yeah.
Somebody's got a wide board state.
Yeah.
And somebody is saying, okay, we need to deal with that. I need to blow up the board, and I need to do a board wipe. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. You have a wide board. Why don't you hit me? I'll create a whole bunch of flyers. On my turn, I'll hit them, kill them before they can wipe the board, and then you can just come back at me, because if you want to, I'm going to save your board, and I'm going to be tapped out to hit him.
Mm-hmm.
And they said yes. It's like, okay, great, do that. And then I was able to protect myself. So there's a couple of things that you can do where, yeah, you can make deals with this. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's almost like the rattlesnake that people don't get to see, because you just get to sit there and encourage people. Yeah, go ahead, swing out.
Yes, it's always very unnerving when this is a powerful political play that I think other people tend to like to use a lot more, but we don't tend to use very often. And that is calling the bluff, right? If somebody tries to make a deal with you that you find disfavorable or insulting, or they're threatening your board state, not threatening you in real life, but they're like, listen, I'm going to blow your whole board up unless you do this. It's a power move to say, oh yeah, do it.
Yeah.
See what happens.
And frankly, it's good to call people on that, so they don't have that kind of bargaining power all the time. It's good to, hey, follow through. Whether good or bad, whatever it is, follow through on what you say you're going to do, because frankly, that's the only way you're going to be able to get any kind of political favor in the game anyway.
Right.
Alex, are there any other cards that you want to talk about? Maybe one in particular that is near and dear to our hearts here?
Mike, I know exactly the perfect card. We actually used this commander card when we were doing a live commander deck tech or deck building for one of our listeners. And we built the deck on the air and we sent it to them, right? We sent them that deck.
We need to send them that deck.
Okay, we'll send them that deck.
I need to send them that
Mike
deck.
needs to send them that deck. That card is, of course,
working on
Piru the Volatile. You know that if you listen to our podcast. For 2 double red, double white, double black. That is 8 mana. Excuse me. That's a lot of mana. That's 8 mana for a legendary creature, Elder Dragon, 7/7 with flying and lifelink. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Piru the Volatile unless you pay red, white, black. When Piru dies, it deals 7 damage to each non-legendary creature. And of course, since Piru has lifelink, you will also gain 7 times that much life, right?
Yep.
We made a whole deck based off of this. If you want to see how the Social Contract guys made a social Piru deck, which appears to be board wipe tribal, by all means, go listen to our episode. Mike will put a link in the show notes. Mike, do you have anything to say about Piru?
Not that I haven't said before. It's a good card.
Yeah.
I'm glad we were able to make it into a social contract kind of format card. Piru is fun.
Okay. I have 2 more that I'll do here. First is Karazakar the Eye Tyrant, which is a 3 black red, 5 mana for a legendary creature Beholder. This one's from Forgotten Realms Commander, of course. It's a 5/5. Whenever you attack a player, tap target creature that player controls and goad it. Goading is, of course, until your next turn. That creature attacks each combat if able and attacks a player other than you if able.
Yep.
Karazakar has the second ability. Whenever an opponent attacks another one of your opponents, you and the attacking player each draw a card and lose 1 life. Mike, I said earlier this year, maybe it was last year, hard to tell, that Rakdos, which is red and black, tends to have a lot of interesting commanders in silver border, which is very disappointing because until an upcoming set, Unfinity, silver border cards have never really been legal in Commander unless you've rolled 0 with your group. Karazakar is one of the first Rakdos commanders in a long time, maybe since what's her name? Zantra Sleeper Agent, I think, was the last really interesting political one. Rakdos is such a political color pair, but we don't see the commanders. And this is extremely political, right? You're getting the goad in, and that goad will trigger the second ability where you're drawing a card and losing a life. But just like with Curse of Hospitality, you are encouraging your opponents to attack your other opponents so that they get value. And I love that. Yeah, no, this is a very good card.
Karazakar is, first of all, Beholders existing in Magic the Gathering makes me very happy. But yeah, the idea of the forced combat matters kind of stuff, I'm a big fan of it. And seeing that, with Karazakar and a couple other cards that came up this year, especially in Rakdos, and encouraging that goad effect, encouraging, just combat in Commander very happy about it. And Karasakar is among my top commanders this year as far as fun. But this is also one of those cards that, hey, this is still decent in the 99. You know, this is a cool effect if need be. And that's one of the things that matters to me when you're talking about creatures. If it's your commander, cool. If it's not your commander, is it still worth it? And Karasakar is absolutely worth it in the right deck. So
for sure.
Pick by you.
So here's my last commander that I'll pick. And this one isn't really a social card, but this is very applicable to my other project. And that is Cody Vociferous Codex, which is a 3-mana legendary artifact creature construct. It's a 1/4. With the static ability, you can't cast permanent spells. It's a pretty big downside. Cody has the activated ability, pay 4 and tap, and you will add Wooburg, white, blue, black, red, green. That's 5 mana, one of each color. When you cast your next spell this turn, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile an instant or sorcery card with lesser mana value. Kind of like Cascade. Until end of turn, you may cast that card without paying its mana cost. Put each other card exiled this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. Now, the effect is not necessarily what I'm looking at, right? Cody is a walking, talking, living spellbook. And of course, my other project, the Commander Spellbook, is a search engine for Commander combos. If that's something that you've never heard of before and interests you, you can go to commanderspellbook.com and check that out. Mike, that's my last commander, but I do have 2 lands that came out this year that I'd like to talk about, if that's okay.
You do. Yeah, absolutely. And one of those lands was one that I was extremely excited
for sure. About, so. Do you want to talk about that one, and I'll talk about the other one?
No, I want to talk about Axgard Armory.
Please.
Just because it's one of those cards that, if you look at the overall value, okay, I get it. But it's really helpful in the colors that it is.
It's an excellent card.
Axgard Armory enters the battlefield tapped. You can tap it to add white. You can also pay 1 red, red, white and tap it and sacrifice it. To search your library for an aura card and or an equipment card, reveal them, put them into your hand, then shuffle your library. This is a pay 5, in sacrificing a land to do so. Get 2 specific cards in your deck and into your hand in Boros. Boros loves auras. Boros loves equipment. Auras can be curses. Like, there's a bunch of different things that this can go get. And there's not a whole lot of... I don't see a lot of downside to it. Yeah, it's going to cost a lot one turn, but it's instant speed, remove this, do the thing, cool. I really like Axgard Armory because there's a lot of powerful equipments that your equipment decks rely on. There's a lot of important enchantment auras that your enchantress decks apply on. I love Axgard Armory. I'm really glad that you put this on here because I'm happy to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure, Mike. Axgard Armory is one of those cards that I just had to slot right away, right? Because you know me, I love utility lands. And I don't mind if a land has significant downside. For example, as this one has 2 downsides. The first one being that it's not fetchable, it has no land types. And the second one being that it ETBs tapped. However, that huge upside of pay 5 equivalent, that's 4 tap and sacrifice, and get 2 cards. 2 cards tutored on a land.
Cards. Yep.
1 or 2. Yeah, you don't have to get 2. You can get 1 or 2. But the power on Axgard Armory and in Boros, no less. Mike, this card is at a power level and doing the kind of things that remind me of Sunforger, which is widely regarded as the best Boros card in the game.
I understand that it doesn't go into every deck with those colors.
Right.
But in the decks that it goes into, it goes in there and it's
a windmill slam.
Yeah, it's great. Why don't you talk to me about our other tap land?
Sure. This will be the last card that I talk about today. And this was another one that I just had to slot right away because, again, I love utility lands. Littjara Mirror Lake. That's a land. Littjara Mirror Lake enters the battlefield tapped and has tap at blue. Just like Axgard Armory, Littjara Mirror Lake has an activated ability. Pay 2 green, green, blue, tap and sacrifice. That's a 5 mana or 6 equivalent with the land you're tapping. Create a token that is a copy of target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. Activate only as a sorcery. Now, this is not necessarily a social card, although this is a Windmill Slam in my Vannifar deck where it makes copies of many delightful group hug creatures, which I can then sacrifice to go find more group hug creatures. And I think that a lot of Simic decks, especially creature-focused ones, it doesn't even have to be a copy-based Simic deck. This is just so powerful. And in Simic, you're not really hurting for a 6-mana equivalent. Like, that's peanuts for Simic.
This is another one of those cards that I'm very aware of and just did the realization of, oh, I should probably put this in my Damia Lands deck.
Yeah, I would say so.
You know, and I haven't, but I should. It's
dirt cheap, too. This is an uncommon land cycle. Both of the cards, Asgard Armory and Lijaran Mirror Lake, are under a quarter.
No, this is a great card. I love, like you said, utility lands. I love utility lands where the downside is, you know, oh, it enters tapped. Okay, well, there's a bunch of lands I play that enter tapped.
Right.
Because I'm not playing competitive, you know? So I'm not so worried if I'm a little bit behind for a turn. But the upside of being able to turn something into a creature, the upside of being able to go tutor the exact cards that I need in my Boros decks, I love that in a land. Like, lands usually, like you've said this 1,000 times before, with lands, you are going to pay a premium to do things that you would be able to pay a lot less.
Yeah, you'll pay a big premium
on another specific card.
Yeah.
But it's a land.
Yes.
So, I mean, we love modal double face land cards because those are lands and spells.
Yes, I do like those.
These fit a similar theme to me, where these are lands and they're not spells, but they have a spell effect if I need to. So I'm totally down with that. I love these being a part of our list. Alex, we're starting to wrap up here.
We do. We have a couple more points of our favorites of the year. And Mike asked me to pull up my favorite set of the year, my favorite mechanic this year, and what I would like to see next year if I could design a card for next year. So I'll go ahead and say mine, and then Mike, you can say yours, and we'll compare what we got. My favorite set was Strixhaven. I said it already. Strixhaven Commander Silver Quill deck is one of the coolest ideas for a deck that we have ever had. It's, I think, only the third political Commander Precon after Kaneos and Tiro in, I think it was Stalwart Friendship. And then way back in the original Commander set, we had Zedru in Political Pawns, I believe it was called, Political Power. So we really haven't had that many social contract style precons. It was just a delight to see such an absurdly political deck. I'm super glad, and I supported my LGS by buying this precon. I'm very happy with that. I loved some of Strixhaven. What was your favorite set this year, Mike?
So here's the thing. My heart says Forgotten Realms, but that's just me being really into D&D.
Yeah.
If I go with my head, Strixhaven was my favorite set.
Nice.
The amount of different stuff that it did, we'll get into, favorite mechanics. We'll get into, the fact that of the cards we talked about, there were a good amount of them that came from Strixhaven.
Yeah.
And I just liked that idea. I know there was a complaint that, lore-wise, and it's kind of isolated. It's like, you know what? This was cool.
Yeah.
This was a cool, hey, remember the Eldrazi? That was scary. Hey, Phyrexian? That's scary. Oh my gosh, Nicobolus, that's scary too. We're going to go to wizard school. And I liked the just kind of fun theme of doing that and having a lot of cool cards that interacted in weird ways. Strixhaven was my favorite set.
It's funny, when we hear the pitch for a set, it often sounds a lot worse than it is, right? I remember we heard the pitch for Battle Bond, and the pitch was, it's an esports set. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a train wreck. Well, then Battle Bond came out, and I Two-Headed Giant drafted it during pre-release weekend. I had the time of my life. Battle Bond's one of my favorite sets of all time. Likewise with Strixhaven. We heard about it. I think a lot of people thought this, oh my God, this is going to be a Harry Potter set. Like, what are they going to do to make this not Harry Potter? And Mike, I think they mostly succeeded. They made an interesting, set that has the exact kind of cards that we love. And other than maybe some Wizard Sports Quidditch kind of homages, I think that they mostly steered clear of Harry Potter, which is good.
And the other part of this, Alex, is I can name several of the color combinations that they did with Strixhaven. There's Lorehold,
That's
there's
true.
Quandrix, there's Silverquill. I can name some of those cards. Do you know that they did different color combinations for Kaldheim?
Yeah, they did do color combinations for Kaldheim. It's interesting that you're right. The identity is much stronger.
And I don't remember any of them. I couldn't
Right.
tell you one. If you gave me a multiple choice, I couldn't tell you one of them.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Strixhaven just kind of stuck with me, and maybe it's because of the commander set that came with it. Maybe I don't know, but the overall set, I really enjoyed it, and I think they did a great job.
It's funny. We remember the color pairs, but I think that for the most part, except for perhaps Boros, but even Boros really, that they pretty much played largely into what the colors do already, right? Like white-black isn't normally political, but Orzhov definitely plays those kind of political effects, and they can definitely be in there. And Simic isn't normally necessarily about making copies, but let's just say that if you made a copy deck, it would probably have Simic in it. So it's not like they're really breaking new ground and creating these wild new color combinations. It was more of a light rebrand.
Yeah, they leaned into things that do fit without saying this is all it does.
Yeah.
Which I'm fine with. What was your favorite mechanic?
My favorite mechanic
this set,
ended up being Foretell.
Yeah.
I think I was a little harsh on Foretell in the episode. I haven't gone back and listened to it, but I don't think I gave it its fair due. And it's more than just suspend but face down, right? Mm-hmm. Because if we're told card, like I said earlier this episode when we were talking about Mystic Reflection, which I think was Mike's favorite card of the year, that the fact that you can rattlesnake it, reveal it from your hand, and then foretell it, or you can just leave it there and let everyone stew over it or even forget about it. The fact that instant speed foretold cards can be cast on another player's turn for a ridiculously cheap cost. And we even had a board wipe foretell that we didn't talk about. What was it? Scald something. It was a whiteboard wipe. Foretell is a very nice and versatile mechanic. I don't think I've been running too many of them, but I've come to appreciate the elegance of the creation. I think I initially wrote it off as kind of too similar to Suspend. Mike, what do you think?
So here's the thing. I loved Foretell.
I know you did.
Foretell
right away. You did. Yeah.
Just because I'm I just wanted to confirm this can be a rattlesnake where I can show it to everybody, or it can be a
that's the crux of it. Yeah.
Super fun, and I liked it. I think Doomscar. That's it.
Doomscar. Powerful board wipe.
But believe it or not, that wasn't the mechanic that I picked, and I think I might be cheating here because I don't really know if it counts as a mechanic or not. I want to go back to Strixhaven. I want to talk about Demonstrate.
Yeah,
because
that
was it's so
great.
on theme.
Why don't you tell everyone what Demonstrate is?
Yeah, so Demonstrate is an ability. It's on a cycle. I don't think there's a ton.
There's
of
only
cards
5
that
of them.
have this.
Yeah,
so it's just a cycle. But when you cast this spell, you may copy it. If you do, choose an opponent to also copy it. So I can pay this for the one that I've got pulled up here is Incarnation Technique.
Yeah.
So 5 mana, mill 5 cards, then return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. But you can demonstrate it. So you can do this, and then you can pick somebody else to do it. And if you do, you get to do it twice. I love the ability of I'm going to bring somebody else this value to give myself more value. It leans into, our group hug type of aspect where, hey, whether it's because they're far behind or if you're really mean about it, because they're not going to get the effect out of it that you will.
That's
great.
Yeah. Demonstrate was... You're right. It is a mechanic. It only shows up on a couple of cards, but it's just great, and it really is priced in this interesting way, right? It's priced as pretty expensive, right on the edge of being almost too expensive if you don't demonstrate it. But when you do demonstrate it, the value is explosive. So just for Incarnation Technique, you're paying 4 and a black to mill 5 and then reanimate a creature. That's pretty much right on the edge, right? That's at sorcery speed, paying 5 mana in black. That's playable. I think that's a playable card. However, pay 5 mana to mill 10 cards, reanimate 2 creatures, and another player gets to do the same, mill 5 cards and reanimate a creature for 5 mana, that amount of value is way higher. It's literally 3 times as much value.
Yeah, especially if you can make a friend in doing so.
Yes.
I love Demonstrate. I really, really hope that this is something that they go back to and it's not just a standalone cycle forever.
Right.
But if it is, it's still a really cool mechanic.
Very nice.
I like it a lot. So, as we wrap up here, Alex, why don't you tell me something that you would like to see in 2022? Whether it's a card or an idea for a set, or what are you looking for next year that would be really cool?
There's a card that I've wanted to see printed for some time, but we haven't quite gotten there yet. And it's been really reassuring and exciting to see all of these new political cards. I think this past year, Mike, we've had more political social cards than we've ever had in a single year before. And it's just been really exciting. What I would like to see next year, if I could make a card, or if I could, walk into the R&D offices and tell them how to do their jobs, which is, they have very hard jobs and I have a very easy job, which is making a dumb suggestion. And my suggestion is, it'd be really cool if we could get a trading post card, trading post being an artifact with multiple different activated abilities that each all do different things. But rather than just being for yourself, it'd be very interesting if it was more of a general store style trading post where other people at the table can activate the abilities, take advantage of it, almost like they're buying and selling wares at a store that I've opened. Okay. And maybe in some way I could get paid, or I could get a benefit, maybe treasure tokens or mana, or they give me something in return.
Treasure tokens.
Wouldn't that be such a cool thing to have, Mike?
I do like that. I do, because that's another one of those cards where everybody can get a benefit, but that also means that, is it very likely that anybody is going to try and remove it from you?
Yeah, it'd be pretty unlikely. What about you, Mike? If you could design a card or a set or a mechanic, what would you do?
So I've got an idea in my head, and I don't know what colors it is, but I have an idea for what I consider a group hug commander. And what I want it to be is that at the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, they choose a benefit. And whether that benefit is, they draw a card, or they can play a land from their hand for free, or they can create a token, something along those lines. I want to give them a benefit.
Yeah.
And they're picking it, right? And then I also get some kind of benefit, even if it's less. You know what I mean? That's what I want to look into. I would like a group hug commander where everybody is going to be able to pick the benefit that suits them.
Yeah.
Because if it's something where I'm building everybody to their own, their own deck type and their own speed, I think that would help a little bit with group hug. Because right now the biggest concerns that we get on group hug is that it either speeds up everybody too fast and that makes the game not fun, or, group hug, usually it's a lot of mana, and I don't want there to be a whole lot of mana because I am playing a more methodical deck that takes a little bit more time, or I'm a stacks, player or something along those lines. Okay. Well, if there's something that we can do to where, hey, here are the benefits. On your turn, you get to pick one of these benefits. If you want a 1/1 mana dork, there you go. Have fun. That kind of stuff is something that would be of interest to me. I want to give everybody something that they can get on their turn. And then I also get, whether it's the same benefit or a smaller benefit, I'd appreciate it. I'm a little worried that if it was like, draw a card, and I also get to draw a card, well, that means there's a chance that I draw 3 cards and everybody draws 1, which means I'm scary, which means everybody's going to beat me up.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the balance on it, but that's why I don't work in R&D.
That's true.
I work here with you, talking about silly things that we'd like to see in this silly card game that we love a silly amount.
Yeah, Mike. I mean, to close this out, we've been working on this project for more than a year at this point. We've had a lot of great personalities join us. We've started to build a community of people that feel like we do, who enjoy the social aspect of Magic and having fun at your commander table. And
I'm waving to the Discord as we speak.
Hello everyone in the Social Contract Discord. We'll give you a link to join that if you'd like to come talk with us at the end of this. But it's just been such a joy to be able to participate in this project so far, and let's look forward to episode 100.
Yeah, you know what? I'm down. Let's do it.
Yep.
Let's do it tonight. Let's just record
Okay.
50 episodes.
Well, I don't know.
Tonight.
I think I'm going to run out of time on that one, Mike. I don't know about that.
Oh, okay. Well, fine. All right, fine. Okay, well, fair enough. Well, I'll tell you what. If I need to chase you down to record another 50 episodes, or if anybody wanted to talk to you, ask you questions, judge questions, anything along the lines, how would they find you?
For sure. You can catch me on Twitter at Lappermedic. That's LAPPERMEDIC. Or you can email me privately at alex@edhrec.com. And I know I shielded out for my project earlier in this episode. If you didn't quite catch that, that's the Commander Spellbook project, the EDH combo search engine at commanderspellbook.com.
Everybody, thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed listening to any of the cards that we talked about this episode, or you got to get some deck boxes, play mats, etc., you can do so and support us at the same time. You can go to bit.ly/EDH_social. There you can buy all the stuff that you were going to buy already, and it helps us out a little bit in the process. That's our affiliate link with TCG Players. So if you're going to buy the stuff and you need to order it in anyway, help us out. At the same time, we're also going to include our Discord link in the show notes. There you can go submit cards for our, ooh, can I see that? We just had an episode not too long ago where we crowdsourced a lot of cool cards. You can ask Honorable Judge Alex questions, things along those lines. You can also follow us on Twitter at EDH_social or email us at thesocialcontractedh@gmail.com. Thank you for getting us to episode 50. Thank you for getting us through this hectic year, both Magic and otherwise. Looking forward to a lot of cool changes and a lot of cool things happening in the near future here. We hope that you take this journey with us. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone.